This is natural gas, surging and boiling out of the sea as man begins to harness a massive new source of power. Only a couple of decades ago, natural gas was burnt away as a waste product of the oil industry. Now, nations throughout the world have joined the search for natural gas to drive their factories and generators and heat their homes and offices. In the Soviet Union, enormous new reserves of gas and oil have been discovered in Siberia. Much of the heavy gear must be airlifted hundreds of miles to the drilling sites for lack of roads. But the Russians, faced with blizzards in winter and insect-infested swamps in summer, are determined to achieve the enormous yields they say the wells can produce. With enough pipelines, they believe Siberia could become a powerhouse for much of Europe, west as well as east. Recently, the Soviet Minister for Foreign Trade traveled to Essen, one of West Germany's major industrial cities, to sign a $1 billion contract. Under the terms of the deal, West Germany will get a 20-year supply of Siberian gas. In exchange, it will provide 1,240 miles of 52-inch steel tube for the pipeline. A month earlier, the Russians signed a similar deal with Italy. The toast to the trading deal, added to a growing list of contacts between West Germany and the Soviet bloc countries, cannot have gone unnoticed in East Germany. West German-Soviet relations have not always echoed to the chink of glasses. In 1953, when workers in East Berlin rose against the regime, Moscow joined East Germany in accusing the West Germans and their friends of fomenting the revolt. The rebellion itself, sparked off by food shortages and tough production targets, was put down with the help of Soviet tanks. When the Russians withdrew, they left an East German regime, headed now by Walter Ulbricht, stronger and more doctrinaire than before. East Germany, less than half the size of its western neighbor and still only beginning to emerge from the ruins of war, had a hard road ahead. While investment poured into West Germany, the East Germans barricaded themselves behind barbed wire and exhorted their people to build a new society under communism. Denied free elections, many voted with their feet. Out of a population of less than 20 million, more than 3.5 million men, women and children, including some of the country's most promising scientists and young workers, fled to the west through the open frontier in Berlin. They placed the regime in an impossible situation. And so one summer day in 1961, the people of Berlin awoke to find their city cut in two by 28 miles of concrete and barbed wire. The wall, with its checkpoints and watchtowers, had come. The flood of refugees slowed to a trickle, but thousands were still prepared to stake their lives on the bid to escape. The wall completed what the so-called Iron Curtain had begun, the division of European peoples into separate political and economic camps. If one German wanted to visit another, he had to pass through armed guards on a military frontier. Meanwhile, the West Germans were already creating what would later be called an economic miracle. Over the ruins of the past, they built vast modern industries and the export orders rolled in. By 1958, 3 years before the wall went up, West German exports overtook those of Britain. Its currency became one of the strongest in the world. Volkswagens, the people's cars promised but not delivered in pre-war days, rolled off the production lines by the million. They were in enormous demand both at home and abroad. In 1968, 1.5 million were built and over 1 million were exported. The Volkswagen factory is powered by natural gas. In the future, some of it could come from Siberia. As trade boomed, the West Germans began to enjoy the benefits of being an advanced industrial society. Wages were high and the shops were full of good things. Germans, though traditionally cautious with their money, could now afford to buy good homes, good cars, holidays abroad. The post-war buildings are a spectacular symbol of the people's confidence and prosperity. The people of East Germany, though faced with power and labour shortages, have achieved their own economic miracle. Out of post-war chaos, they have emerged as the 9th industrial power, with an output of $1,220 per head compared with $1,700 in West Germany. Though some consumer goods are available, the emphasis has been on heavy industry. East German factories now have the resources to manufacture consumer goods. But under their existing trade relationships, the East Germans are obliged to make most of their manufactured goods for export to the Soviet Union and other Eastern European countries in exchange for raw materials. 3/4 of their exports go east, only 1/4 to the markets of the outside world. The pre-war German camera industry was divided in half by the post-war frontier. As a result, East Germany still has the means to make cameras of high quality and very advanced optical equipment. The communist regime does not hesitate to draw on an aristocratic heritage, as in the Meissen porcelain works, whose delicate products earn valuable foreign currency in a harshly competitive world. Delight in beauty and craftsmanship is universal, but the 800-mile barrier between the two Germanys cuts across all the bonds of a shared culture, a common language, the ties of kinship and family. It is a denial of true nationhood. At the recent celebrations marking the 20th anniversary of the German Democratic Republic, the East Germans felt they had much to be proud of. They've struggled hard for what they have, and their standard of living, though perhaps 1/3 lower than in West Germany, is the highest in the communist world. Politically, they've made less progress, their leaders seemingly haunted by the presence of another Germany beyond the frontier. Mr. Ulbricht stands by his demand for full recognition of East Germany as an independent state. The West German Chancellor, Willy Brandt, speaks of 2 states within one German nation. As West Germany enters a new era of economic association with the Russians and other Eastern European nations, East Germany seems increasingly isolated. To Mr. Ulbricht, it must be a bitter blow to see Soviet natural gas going to further the economic growth of West Germany.